So we were at lunch at work at Founders Factory Africa. Full disclosure, you've got 3 people who work at the same company on this podcast. Andile standing in for Musa Kalenga. Come back, bro. All right. So, so Hope, Nzwi and myself were, in our breakout area having lunch. In fact, they were having lunch and I was walking past.
Yeah.
And you guys were there was this fascinating exchange going between the two of you because, of course, Hope is Founders Factory Africa's head of venture sourcing, and Nzwi is our head of engineering. And there was this amazing exchange between those two practices over lunch. Hope, do you remember what you were asking Nzwi? And it was kind of specific. And I remember Nzwi, he indulged you for a while until it got to the point where you were literally asking for his playbook on what to invest in.
Yeah.
But how did the conversation start?
Yeah.
And do you remember?
I think I do. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I think I was trying to get his thoughts on, because this blockchain crypto space is moving so quickly, right? Number one, how do you keep up as an individual? Because I was just joking to him, sometimes things will just happen on Twitter where somebody's announcing a new coin and then 3 days later that coin has increased in value. I'm like, but I'm at work. I can't keep up with all this. So then I was asking him how does one keep up, but also how do you vet sort of all these different coins? Because there's limitations currently in a South African context where we know the Ethereum, we know the standard things in terms of Bitcoin,
but gas prices. We know some of the buzz phrases.
Yeah, but there's certain coins that I read about on Twitter that I don't know how to invest in, and I was like, Nzwi, how do I invest before it's too late?
And Nzwi, you started telling us, and we didn't know this at the time. This is where I put my stuff down because I was about to leave. I was like, well, I think I need to stick around for this conversation. You were like, you and your wife had started dabbling, just tracking coins, and you were starting to make sense of the space for yourselves. You'd been doing this for a while. So yeah, tell us about that. What the heck, bro? You guys just sat down at the dinner table and went, well, baby, we're just going to start tracking coins. How does that, how does an individual get to that point of interest, but also practice in the space as an individual?
Yeah. So I think it started off more so just experimenting, and soon enough the space started growing. And
what were you experimenting with? Because this is the interesting.
I think a couple of years ago I came across this one business called Genesis Mining, and basically they had started building this data center basically in Ireland, whereby they will be able to, Iceland, where they were basically leveraging the cold air to cool their servers, but these servers were actually basically mining cryptocurrency. And they had started an interesting model whereby they were selling contracts to individuals to say, hey, buy a contract, and basically that contract gives you access to the power within that data center.
What year was this?
This was in 2016.
How did you hear about this? How did you hear about this in 2016?
So this is one of the key aspects from a background perspective. I've always been very interested within the fintech space, especially payments. All right. So for me, it was sort of like a natural evolution to say, okay, we're seeing different payment methodologies coming into play. What is the next step? And this brought about, digital currency as a interesting aspect for me to look at. And I just started doing a bit of experimentation. But yeah, I had no idea that it was going to become, this popular.
And did you invest? Did you buy one of these contracts?
Yes, I did.
I did. How did that go?
Most probably the best investment that I've ever made.
No freaking way.
Yes.
So fun fact, Nzwi's been on the show before. Many years ago, you actually did a master's thesis that actually looked at the behavioral characteristics of South Africans, and I think it was around payment adoption, and relative to other African countries. And you actually, it was a book in the end. I think you turned it into a book. So it's actually fascinating because I would not have made that connection.
Yeah,
I thought it might be a more random connection than a slow and steady interest in something like as basic or Web 2 as payments, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
So what's quite interesting is that my research back then was on near field communication, which is now like super popular now. Pay as you go, you know, phones and exactly. It's all over the show. So it really is that migration, and I hope that, you know, crypto will also be as popular as NFC enabled payments.
So hope you are, obviously, I think you call it late to the party, but I don't know if you're late, really. I think we're all late.
I don't know. So you can advise me on the coins that I can.
We're all early.
Yeah.
We missed the boat on Genesis early. 202016, you've been having it, bro.
Exactly.
Like, come on. That's 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, no, 6 years ago. My math is killing me. But I mean, what's your vibe now? I know, you know, you've got an exchange or two, a little wallet-inyana there, a wallet here and a wallet there. What's your vibe like, and how are you approaching it to quote unquote catch up, or are you even approaching it like that?
Yeah. I mean, the vibe started with like FOMO. And I think naturally, like where people go when they feel a sense of FOMO is like the most trusted platforms like your Lunos in South Africa. Increasingly though, where I'm currently at is, and I think I've referenced it, like sticking to what I know. Like what I know is how to vet innovators, right? And back innovators. So being part of a lot of different communities, angel communities that are looking to sort of invest in women that are building on Web 3.0 and, you know, all these sort of insane things that are happening currently in the market, because I guess the same way at an African level, we believe that blockchain will help us leapfrog. I think even the things that I'm interested in terms of equality, like there's the sentiment that, hey, maybe it's easier to help women get more technical on this new sort of wave because everybody's basically starting from zero, right? And how do you empower them and then essentially get that funding they need to kind of launch different projects. So that's my current vibe, that like, yes, I'll dabble in coins, but I'm not Nzwi in terms of like building this complex infrastructure to kind of track multiple different coins. So where within that space can I find my sweet spot and then double down on that? And it's like angel investing in different like startups that are building interesting projects within the space.
So where I really vibe with you, Hope, is the only reason I'm even into crypto today is because there's a missional aspect to what got me in, right? This idea that, a lot of what's broken with independent media and media in general and the inclusivity of that space everywhere in the world. It's just beleaguered with all kinds of, it's fraught, right? With all with these issues that Web3 technologies are promising to help alleviate in some way, right? And I vibe with, and people who are listening to you for the first time might not know this about you, and maybe they do because they might follow you on Twitter, but you're really serious about like women.
Yeah.
Taking up space and not waiting for permission to exist, and also to thrive and to do business in tech and outside of tech. And you really, so it's fascinating to me that you see this space as uniquely positioned relative to other spaces in tech. And I mean, what have you seen in other spaces in tech that don't seem as yielding to women participating in that way?
Yeah, I guess it's if the presence of a lot of legacy issues, right? Which means that if you are trying to democratize a space, like you would need to do it from a systems perspective, which has traditionally been extremely hard. There has been progress. There's so many different platforms now that are training software engineers remotely, and they having specific targets around, is there gender balance? How do we make sure that there's a pipeline of organizations willing to kind of give people these roles and making sure that women also get these roles. But because women have been excluded economically for so many different years, it's almost like playing catch up, right? And I think there isn't, as much as, and I started angel investing maybe like 2 years ago, like since 2020. And yes, you see the progress and you see the growth, but there's so many other structural elements that kind of feed into sort of the progress that women can make. That for me, that's why the promise of blockchain and crypto and the newness of it is like such an interesting case for, could you then, because everybody's learning at the same time, make sure that we start that learning from an equality perspective, and then we kind of leapfrog and use a growing market to kind of leapfrog that gender inequality that currently exists. So, a couple of days ago, I was on a Twitter space of women in crypto. There were like 100 people on that Twitter space. A lot of them are women building exciting projects already, right? And they're like, I'm learning through YouTube. I'm getting a mentor from Binance Labs, and they're building projects. They're taking that risk. I don't know what it is about blockchain that's like making them also take that risk, which is quite fascinating. But for me, I think it's like a powerful lever to kind of leapfrog and really make sure that within this tech space, we are a lot more diverse, because that's what we need for true innovation as well.
And you're right. If it was a excuse me. And you're right, because if it was a fintech Twitter space, there's probably, my hunch, unfortunately, my stereotypical hunch is that the mix would have been leaned male.
Still lean towards
by default.
Yeah.
Even though it isn't technically open space. I mean, for people to come in. So you're right. There's something really interesting going on.
Yeah, because I guess, a lot of people go into things when there's representation and success stories in it. So the reason why you would predominantly see a lot of male founders within certain industries is because they did have role models that they looked up to, that they saw people starting fintechs and health techs, and they're like, oh, I can do it as well. With blockchain, those use cases or success stories are still being developed and built, especially on our continent. And I think that brings a renewed sense of hope that I could be the first, or I could be one of those pioneers within the space. And maybe gender doesn't matter, or maybe sort of the prior things that hold people back, from cultural nuances to sort of education levels, like those things don't matter, because we're all learning and growing as an ecosystem from scratch. It does help that there have been like a few success stories, like, there is one YC-backed sort of crypto trading platform, and the chief technology officer is a woman, right? But I think because it's still quite new, there aren't a lot of biases in terms of what does a blockchain successful unicorn within the blockchain space look like. And I think it gives a renewed sense of hope for women to potentially be that or work towards that.
Fascinating. And Zwi, so in your story, your story again, and maybe don't let me rush it if this isn't the order of things, but it was fascinating to me again. Your story was fascinating to me because I'm married to a techie as well, right? So a highly, super high-performing, technical, like, she's incredible. Star is amazing, right? My wife, Stabiso, is incredible, right? And so I almost saw myself as you shared how you and your wife, and what's her name?
Michelle.
How you and Michelle sat down one day and just decided to solve for how you wanted to understand the space better, so you could presumably invest in it more reliably and sensibly, and be a part of this wave you want to be a part of. So, taking you back to your Genesis experiment, that contract that worked out really well for you. What's the story between you and Michelle sitting down and going, hey, let's build this, whatever you call it, right? Let's build this, I don't know, it's an algorithm, or is let's build this platform and track these different coins, and let's get ahead of this a little bit. So what's that little gap there? Give me the story between those 2 points in the...
Cool. So I think, let's start off. Let's go years back, right? On the African continent, the mobile phone is introduced, right? It was introduced late. compared to other markets. However, what we saw was something very interesting in that some of the solutions that were developed leveraging the mobile technology, such as, mobile payments, right? Mobile money payments, evolved at such a rate that we were able to overtake developed economies and create these new payment methods that were, incredibly powerful, but also incredibly digital in a developing economy, or in developing economies, basically. And for me, that was an indication that Africa can do it. So that has been my perception throughout, in that if we see a new developing technology within the world that can revolutionize how we live our lives, there is a big potential that Africa can do it better than anyone else. Mm. So that was my first hypothesis. My second hypothesis was just around, access to investment opportunities for people on the continent. I view myself as someone who's, I would say, relatively successful. However, what was clear was that even in my relative successfulness, if I can put it that way, I found it very challenging to enter certain investment opportunities. And I would investigate investment opportunities not only on the continent, but off continent, trying to figure out ways how I would basically be part of the game and enter the game. And it was quite clear that even when someone is based within a specific market, it's very hard for them to gain access to certain opportunities, simply because they are reserved to certain individuals with certain net worth levels, and everyone else is just left out. And so through that journey, I also started discovering that, oh, wait a moment. It seems as though that the fundamentals are the same when one is building a business within the crypto world. However, the barrier to entry is lower and there are no gatekeepers, right? Or fewer gatekeepers. And so I started having these discussions with my wife, Michelle, to say, if indeed, future organizations are going to be structured in this fashion, then why don't we look at this new asset class the same way that we would look at investing in equities, right? And basically start apportioning some of our, disposable income as if we're investing in equities. And if it fails, it fails, but we have tried. However, this opportunity to just have access to these exciting projects on a global level, for me was just too attractive.
Wow.
We should definitely go to dinner with Zvi and his wife.
Yeah, absolutely. Get invited. Yeah, so Michelle, if you're listening. Right? So, wow. What does Michelle do?
Michelle, she is a pricing specialist within the energy space now.
What's interesting is Tabiso used to price actuarial products.
Wow.
But obviously pricing was a very, very different thing. She's a health economist now. The reason I ask really is I'm trying to immerse people in an everyday sort of exposure to the space and how, hopefully someone listening goes, I could sit down with my wife or my spouse or my partner and have this conversation and it's deliver on that. And I wonder, Hope, what kind of conversations you're having day to day in your context with family, friends, significant others about this. And what does that look and sound like relative to
Yeah.
to Nzwi and
I think
Michelle.
Z's on like level 100. Definitely, I think I am having these conversations with my family. I think what I 100% agree with what Nzwi has said is just how we're in a very interesting time in the world where a lot of the potential to kind of like build your wealth and all these sort of things is open, right? But the only barrier is information. And hence my question to Nzwi earlier to say, how do you kind of build structures that help people get as much information as quickly as possible? Because that is just the only dependency here, right? But every single day, I think a lot of the conversations I have with people that are not in tech, like my mom is a nurse, my dad just like finished his law degree, so he's going to become a lawyer
congrats,
soon.
Dad.
I know. I was
And
like,
Mom,
I was so happy. But for them, like tech is still quite a new thing. They're still in using WhatsApp and like rely on WhatsApp groups for information. And the key question is like, how do you just get started, right? Like, how do we lower the barrier? And I think that's my key question with blockchain to say, if we say that it has the potential to kind of drive inclusion, how do we lower the barrier? Some of it is information, some of it is technical, some of it is price related, so that people can really just get on it and leverage the opportunity that it brings. So yes, as we've discussed, like I think where we've seen the most success from an adoption perspective is things like trading platforms. But I do think there is more potential that could come from it. But that's a starting point. So it's like just put in a little bit of money, and hence, that's what I like. The platforms like your Easy Equities or Luno, they create products for the mass market to kind of get started. And then once you get the information, once you understand your own risk appetite, you can grow in that and hopefully then be able to kind of build your wealth. And we've seen so many success stories from people from the townships who found out about this random blockchain thing, and then now they've upped their wealth and lifestyle
The
as well.
Instagram got lit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just where to start and like how do you get the right information, but also how do you invest in the trusted platforms to make sure that that any small disposable income that people do have is still secure and can grow, and they don't lose it, because there's a lot also going on.
And this isn't a
the
plug,
Emirates.
right? But Cello's been great about thinking about how to deliver on that, because I think that's also what I like about Web3. There seems to be an existential need for successful projects in Web3 to truly deliver on democratization.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
what
is this?
Yeah.
And their fate, a lot of them lies in being able to deliver on that from a sort of community and adoption perspective. And I like that because, again, traditional fintech, it's about walled gardens and sort of doubling down on monopoly, and it's never ever been about I remember interviewing the CEO of what was then Barclays business, commercial business in Africa. This was on the continent. This was before they spun out of ABSA and all of that. And he gave me a very candid interview, which at the time it took him leaving a few months later to join MTN for me to realize why he was doing it. And I think basically part of what's going on is, I don't know that monopolies and these entrenched legacy institutions are going to be disrupted. I don't see that, if I'm honest. I don't really will it necessarily either. But what I do see is a new alternative growing alongside it. Right?
Yeah.
And the reason I mentioned Cello is not just to get them into this interview. It's, we have Nancy, who is a technologist on our team at Founders Factory Africa.
Yeah.
In an educational context and fellowship opportunity with Portent, who's our managing producer here at African Tech Roundup, and my lovely wife Stabiso, who's a health economist but really interested in getting and understanding this blockchain space. And she's also, by the way, our team finance person. And they're in this learning environment that's Pan-African, meeting weekly to understand not just how Cello works, but the fundamentals of blockchain tech. And code and, how to launch your own product and what the difference between a DAO and the different. And this is all in the context of fellowship, right? Where they're making these Pan-African connections, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen a technology deliver on that level of community and democratization in a while.
Yeah.
Now, I'm obviously not completely idealist. I understand that, there'll probably be consolidation and people will be left out and all of that.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about, at least for me.
Yeah.
And hopeful about, let me say. Excuse the pun, hope, if you don't mind. But so this, and thank you for letting me talk so long, because honestly, even the series and why we're on this mic talking about our parents and wives and workmates, and because for me, that's my burden. My burden is that this sense of I can't be a part of that because it's not for me.
Yeah.
Like, can we just... So maybe that's, if I frame a question, is, someone might argue, I mean, do some research on your dad is like part of the Econet story, you've always been fairly, successful as a technical person and as a business person, an entrepreneur. Kind of feels like you're the poster child for success in this space. What would you say to someone who might say that and think, yeah, man, unless I'm Zwi and married to Michelle, this is probably something I need to sort of stay away from, maybe go do something else.
Interesting question. So I'm gonna admit something.
Yeah.
That I've kept a secret, but personally, I've always felt that I've been late to the crypto party.
What? Get out.
That's the honest truth. But I think, why I'm willing to admit this is because, there was a time when I knew nothing about Bitcoin, right? I had to learn. I had to just basically download the document and start learning. What is it about? Who are the players behind it? And what's the problem that is being solved? So I think for everyone, it's one just has to start the journey. I think personally, I've always been inquisitive about new things that are developing around me. And trying to be aware of those things. And I think that has helped quite a lot in just allowing me to kind of see new markets that are appearing when they haven't yet mushroomed. It's just taking the time to research. There are many other things that I've researched that have totally turned out to be failures, but for me it was a learning exercise. But so it's one of these things that I personally feel that people need to just accept that there's gonna be change. And if one decides not to accept change, with the way things are moving in our world, you'll be left behind. That's the honest truth. So just be inquisitive, right? I don't know about you, Hope.
No,
how you got to know about this space.
But I agree. I think the time that we live in now, which is quite interesting. I mean, we're on a platform that is aiming to democratize this information, right? I think there is a lot of information out there, and the onus is on an individual to kind of distill it and then try to understand what is the comfort level I have for where I can just start.
Exactly.
But to Nzwi's point, like, you kind of need to start and like commit, and then that's how you grow and evolve over time in terms of your knowledge, in terms of the networks, in terms of being part of communities where you can fellowship and learn with other people as well. But there definitely needs to be the commitment from you to just take a step and start. So I agree. It's interesting to hear you say, though, that you felt like you late to the party. But I think it brings up an interesting point, because I think we'll all always feel that way if you're catching sort of something that has been in motion. But the nice thing about Bitcoin is, like, at a macro level, we all still at the very beginning
That's
and
right.
learning what this
That's
technology really is, right? So I don't think it's too late. I think there is still enough time for somebody to get started now, and in the next 3 years, you become an expert, right?
Exactly.
Because so many things would have changed by then.
And there's something to be said for the both of you, who I admire. As I say, and I say this to you in private as well as I'm saying on this. Like, I'm a huge fan of you both, and it's a privilege to be your workmate. And one of the things I admire about, observing you guys operate as proponents of the values you've shared on the show is you've taken a conscious decision, both of you, to use your social media profiles to share what you're learning, right? In very different ways. I mean, you get a very different flavor following Hope on Twitter than you do sort of Nzwi on LinkedIn. I think that's your most engaged platform. But it does boil down to this working in public thing, democratizing, the information, which again is kind of counter to the business we're in, which is like insider trading, let's be honest, in a positive way. No, don't give me a positive insider trading. But Nzwi, you shared at the end of last year, I will never forget that post. I was like, for one, you were admitting things like your MetaMask got hacked. You were like, this was a mixed year for me, guys. Like, I had this happened. There were good things on the list, but there were things like getting a MetaMask account hacked. And so I'm going to ask you both to point to really positive things that you'd point to in your journey along, around Web3 and blockchain tech and your education in the space, your personal education in the space, and like a highlight, but also like a downside. So give us 2 anecdotes. So I imagine that MetaMask hack was kind of brutal.
Yeah, it was. But you know what? I think that's not the worst.
That's not the worst.
No, that's not the worst.
Okay, so that Genesis contract wasn't housed there.
So there's a long story behind that. As well.
No, it gets worse.
No, so I think for me the worst is not necessarily believing in myself, right? Why I say this is because I would do research and I would pick out certain signals, but I didn't have that belief in myself to say, you know what, I can actually be at the forefront of discovery, at the forefront of just innovation, right? Simply because, I'm African and there are certain, things that we have been taught that we need to be followers and not leaders sometimes. Yeah. Exactly. And so I actually believe that has been sort of like my down light, if I can put it that way.
When you reflect on those, you realize all the things that if you had just pushed into like trusting the hard work you were clearly putting in, the sense making you were doing, the research you were doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I think
is there a point in time where you look back on those things? Is it like in December 2021 where you go, dang, bruh, like I really did know stuff and I should have used it?
Yeah, I mean, even before that, even before that. So I think it's just one of those things where it links up to this realization that, wow, within this new ecosystem, we actually have the same opportunities as everyone else, right?
Wow. Wait a minute, because that's so hard to. That's really awkward, but I have a hard time fully embracing that. Like, you mean I have as much of an opportunity to be a part of this as, say, I don't know, someone in the Western world that, like, really? It's awkward to admit, but it's really hard to...
It's hard, yes. And for me, I think I was in denial for a while to say, no, there's no way that I can have that much opportunity and success. Who am I, right? What have I done, right? I'm here in Southern Africa.
Wow.
right? So there's this
From the smallest country, well, no, there's Lesotho and Swaziland. So from the third
And
smallest,
Namibia,
third smallest
country in Southern Africa.
Yeah. So there's this
Zimbabwe,
complexity, and I see it in other people that I engage with as well. When I tell them that there is opportunity, and the barrier to entry is very low, but there's still this very strong skepticism, and it's crazy because that was me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what would you say is so then if that's the low, and it sounds like you've transitioned from that low, what would you say the height of your experience so far in this Web3 experience of yours has been?
Oh man.
Coming to you, Hope.
So I think the one that really stands out is being invited to be an investor into a project simply because of my passion, right, within this space, and quickly realizing that it's an amazing opportunity. I mean, I invested in this project. I had never seen returns like that before. And it was a new world for me within the crypto space of how, pre-sales take place and how, I guess, a well-regulated and a well-structured crypto business actually gets built. This business is formalized in Switzerland, fully regulated, right? But just seeing that entire process and seeing the returns of the hard work, with what can I say? Amazing founders, right? So for me, I think it was my highlight to say, wow, there's something that's happening whereby people are really building businesses that are answering real questions, and they're building them the right way, trying not to be fly by nights, right?
One of your biggest pet peeves. You don't know anything about Nzwi, like he's actually quite hostile towards a lot of the opportunism in the space, which I mean I'm okay with some of it, obviously, but yeah, Nzwi, you like it done properly and well and thoroughly, and you want people to commit, and you want to see that, and you value that. Let's call it. Eh?
Yeah. No, I do.
Is that business still going, by the way? The one you invested in?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you would have been invited to be a part, like an early investor in something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
are you allowed to say what area it's in? This feels like
I don't want to say. I don't want to say at this point.
This feels like hope in our kitchen. Like,
that's your most successful coin.
No.
At which point Nzwi goes, guys, I have to go.
No, at this point, and I don't want to share. I can share in private if someone reaches out to me.
I told you we're insider traders, guys. So yeah, this is what you get on the inside. But this is as much. You can't say I didn't try for you, fam. The village must acknowledge that I did try. But no, that's high and low, amazing. So Hope. You're closing us out.
They won't be as evolved as
No, please. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah,
Hope. It doesn't have to be.
I guess the low for me, it somewhat touches on what Nzwi has said, but in a different way, is not getting started earlier. So my first, I guess, semblance of the fact that the space even exists was, I think, back in like 2016 as well, actually, where I met this guy, from the township, now currently actually advises on the like 4IR blockchain committee for the president. So wow. he's really leveled up. Yeah. And he was the first person to ever talk about blockchain and crypto to me. And I was like, what
back when it was scammy.
Yeah, I was like, this sounds like, what do you mean you can like gain so much money? This sounds like a scam, right? And he's like, Hope, just put in like 2,000 Rand, because I was a student back then, put in 2,000 Rand and like you'll see it grow. And I was like, no, it sounds like a scam. So that is my low line. But I think, I guess the environment that I was in, and you'd increasingly hear people talking about this with enough frequency. I think then the highlight as well is then starting from maybe like 2018 to like start putting small amounts of money even as a student, and then increasingly when I started working. So being able to see that personal portfolio grow is like a mini highlight. But I think to Nzwi's point, I think for me where I get a lot of satisfaction is just the things that people are building with this technology and increasingly having the structures that allow you to back them, right? So whether it's from an angel level, whether it's people raising friends and family rounds, backing people who have such audacious dreams about like what the potential of this technology can mean for the African continent, I think that is like a daily highlight, to be quite honest. So yeah.
Wow. Thank you both for this conversation. I feel like I think we truly let people into what our lives are sometimes like. Like I don't want to over glamorize what it's like to be.
Yeah, I think the good parts of our life.
The good parts. No, we have enough of these moments. Not enough, probably. We have moments like these where we do like fellowship around like a meal or something like that, and every so often it will spark something cool. Like guys, we have to podcast.
Yeah,
you guys we have to have this conversation, and this is one of those times. So, on behalf of the village, and frankly. On behalf of the team that runs a platform that exists for these stories and for these experiences to be mainstreamed, thank you both for being here. And let's switch off these mics so we can talk. We can hear about the Swiss deal. All right, thank you.
We can also invest in the Switzerland company. Under Nzwi's Angel Collective.
Yes. Guide us. Jeez, Sensei, guide us.
Sure.
All right.
But have you ever I think you should do that, Nzwi. Like you should think of like an angel syndicate.